So imagine waking up today, you grab your phone, and your daily AI assistant is just gone.
Completely wiped.
Right. No warning, no backup option to download your data, just permanently deleted. Overnight, 345 million people experienced exactly that.
It is wild. I mean, it's the absolute definition of structural whiplash.
It really is. Today we're looking at how a single week, this very week in July 2026, became the exact moment where the whole AI hype bubble violently collided with, the messy physical reality of the global economy.
Yeah, you've got these massive, slow-moving geopolitical forces that are just slamming directly into hyper-accelerated technology.
And the shockwaves are hitting normal users where it hurts. So welcome to the deep dive. If you're joining us, our mission here is to give you a shortcut to being well-informed. We want to help you skip the information overload and get straight to the aha moments.
Exactly.
We're diving into a really massive stack of notes today. We're specifically looking at the comprehensive AI News Digest from Aaron Rose's Tech-Reader blog, dated Monday, July 6, 2026. And honestly, the stakes have just never been higher.
Because, well, we're just no longer in the experimental phase, right?
Right.
This isn't just a cool software trick anymore. AI has become the actual critical infrastructure of the global economy. I mean, it's the electricity of 2026.
Yeah.
And when you change the rules of the power grid or, say, randomly hike the price of electricity, the entire world feels it instantly.
So let's start right at the top with who is actually trying to write those rules. Because the lead story out of Geneva right now is kind of mind-blowing.
Oh, the UN summit.
Yeah. 169 countries have gathered for the first ever UN Global Dialogue on AI governance, which is massive.
It's unprecedented, really.
It runs right into the ITU AI for Good Global Summit. And all of this is grounded in this preliminary report from an independent scientific panel, a 40-member panel co-chaired by heavyweights like Yoshua Bengio and Maria Ressa.
Right, and that scientific panel, that is the anchor for everything happening in Geneva right now. Yeah. Their preliminary finding isn't just some gentle suggestion for the delegates. It's a really stark warning. They are explicitly saying that AI governance safeguards are severely lagging behind the capability advances.
Severely lagging.
Exactly. But the crucial thing you need to understand here is why the UN is sounding this alarm. They aren't fixated on, science fiction scenarios or hypothetical existential risks.
Like the Terminator stuff.
Right, no Terminator stuff. They're hyper-focused on immediate destabilizing realities. They're worried about severe labor market disruptions, this rapidly widening digital divide, and crucially, the dangerous concentration of frontier models in just 2 or 3 countries.
Well, and that concentration of power is exactly what I want to zero in on for a second, because there's a detail in this UN report that feels just incredibly contradictory to me.
Okay, what's that?
So the official UN AI for Good Global Commission has added 3 specific people to act as, quote, infrastructure layer representatives.
Oh, yes.
Jensen Huang from NVIDIA, Andy Jassy from Amazon, and Brad Smith from Microsoft.
Yep, big 3.
I mean, let me throw a real-world analogy at you here. Isn't this exactly like putting the casino owners in charge of the gambling commission?
Well, yeah.
Like, how can the people who own the infrastructure effectively oversee the frontier AI that they are actively profiting from?
I mean, it's a fun analogy. It really is. But I actually think it misses the physical reality of what AI is right now.
How do you mean?
Well, the UN isn't regulating a casino. They're trying to regulate the global power grid. And you literally cannot write the rules of the grid without the engineers who physically control the current.
Okay, fair point.
The computing power required for these frontier models is so vast and it's so staggeringly capital intensive that these companies essentially are the infrastructure. They aren't just participants.
Yeah, they kind of have to be in the room.
Exactly. By bringing Hong, Jassy, and Smith onto the commission, the UN is just acknowledging a very hard truth. State actors alone cannot regulate a technology that is entirely owned and operated by private hyperscalers.
Wow, okay, so it's an uneasy marriage of necessity. The UN can't regulate the cloud without the people who own the servers.
Right.
But Aaron Rose's commentary on this points out a really stark contrast in how these rules are actually being written.
Yeah, the clash of styles.
Right. On one side, you have this Geneva model, so 169 countries, a UN General Assembly resolution, a scientific panel slowly building deliberate epistemic authority.
Very methodical.
Very methodical. But on the other side, you have the U.S. approach. Over the past month, the White House strategy has basically been, emergency directives, informal pressure, and these kind of ad hoc proposals.
Yeah.
It honestly feels like the U.S. is a bouncer at a club, making up the dress code on the fly just to keep people in line, while the UN is trying to write a global constitution in a massive town hall.
The contrast is sharp, definitely.
Okay.
And the timing of this Geneva summit is absolutely not an accident.
Really?
Oh, yeah. The White House is expected to drop its own voluntary standards framework this very week, right while the Geneva delegates are in session.
Wow. Talk about a split screen.
Exactly. And this is the geopolitical friction you really need to watch. Will the U.S. voluntary standards align with the UN's multilateral baseline, or are we going to see two completely parallel universes of AI law?
That's a huge question.
Because the gap between the U.S. framework and the UN framework, that is where the actual reality of international governance will be decided.
But here's the thing. While diplomats take literally years to debate these theoretical frameworks in Geneva, that regulatory vacuum is creating absolute chaos on the ground today.
Oh, total chaos.
Take the immediate crisis for enterprise developers this week. The Fable 5 billing cliff.
Yeah, that is a brutal wake-up call for the enterprise market.
Brutal is an understatement. Listen to the mechanics of this timeline from the digest. As of tomorrow, July 7, Anthropic's Fable 5 will no longer be included in Pro, Max, Team, and Select Enterprise subscriptions.
Just gone.
Just ripped right out of the bundled plans. And then on July 8, it shifts to brutal usage credits, $10 per million input tokens and $50 per million output tokens.
Which is astronomical.
It's 5 times the introductory rate of Sonnet 5, and it's double the cost of Opus 4.8. And to twist the knife even further, a 50% weekly usage window that was meant to compensate for a recent 19-day export control suspension. That's expiring at the exact same time.
Yeah, the sticker shock for these businesses is going to be immense, but we really have to look at why Anthropic is pulling the rug right now.
Okay, why now?
Well, for the last year, major labs have essentially been subsidizing the cost of compute. They were eating the cost to capture market share.
Right, get everyone hooked.
Exactly. They offered flat subscription rates so enterprise developers would build these complex agentic workflows deeply tied to their specific APIs.
And now they're locked in.
Completely locked in.
Yeah.
Now that their daily operations fundamentally depend on Fable 5, Anthropic is enforcing the actual market reality of what it costs to run these massive models.
So if I'm an enterprise user, and I literally just spent the last week scrambling to rebuild my production workflows around Fable 5 after it came back online, I'm effectively trapped.
You're completely at their mercy.
Because you can't just swap out an AI model in a complex enterprise pipeline overnight, right?
Yeah.
The prompting is different. The formatting is different. The latency is different. I have literally one day to audit my entire pipeline before my costs quintuple.
Yeah, you have no leverage. And this actually brings us right back to that massive user shock we started the deep dive with.
The 345 million users in China.
Exactly. We can connect this U.S. enterprise billing shock to a structurally unrelated but conceptually identical event happening in China.
Okay, break that down for me.
So on July 15, China's interim measures for the administration of AI anthropomorphic interactive services takes effect.
That is a mouthful.
It is. But basically, this law mandates strict anti-addiction systems, mandatory usage notifications, and crucially, instant exit mechanisms for any AI that simulates a human personality.
And the fallout from that is why ByteDance's Dubao, which is literally China's most used AI app, just lost all its AI agents. Alibaba's Qwen announced the same thing, right? No migration pathway at all for user agent data. But what I don't get is, these are some of the most sophisticated engineering teams on the planet.
Right.
Why shut it all down?
Yeah.
Why not just patch the software to comply with the new rules?
Because of the underlying architecture. It's not just a quick patch. The new Chinese law requires an instant exit mechanism, meaning a way to completely wipe a simulated personality's memory and behavior in real time.
Oh, I see.
And architecturally, you can't just slap a stop button on an autonomous agent. These agents rely on massive, intricate vector databases that are constantly updating and intertwining user data with behavioral weights.
So it's baked into the foundation.
Deeply baked in. To comply with an instant exit mandate, companies like Alibaba would have to tear out their core retrieval architecture entirely. The engineering debt was simply too high.
Wow.
It was literally cheaper to just burn the whole thing down and start over.
Man. So what's the synthesis here for you, the listener? Whether you're an American enterprise developer getting priced out by a sudden credit shift on Fable 5, or a Chinese consumer losing your daily AI companion due to a sudden government mandate, the underlying lesson is identical.
It all comes down to production dependency.
Production dependency, exactly. How much of your daily workflow, your business logic, or just your personal productivity relies on infrastructure that someone else can arbitrarily change, price out of your reach, or completely turn off?
Yeah, in 2026, the vulnerability of that dependency is just staggering. You are building your house on land that can disappear tomorrow.
Which creates a really fascinating paradox, honestly. Because despite this incredible fragility at the user level, despite the regulatory chaos and the billing cliffs, the underlying infrastructure layer is experiencing a massive, unprecedented explosion in scale.
It's true. The major tech labs aren't slowing down to figure out the user experience at all. They're pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into building bigger, faster engines.
Which brings us to the frontier arms race. We're seeing two very different strategies play out in the notes right now. First, you have Google. They are taking a remarkably cautious approach with Gemini 3.5 Pro.
Very cautious.
It's continuing its evaluation phase in the Vertex AI Enterprise Preview. They're boasting a massive 2 million token context window and a tiered pricing structure starting at $1.25 for input and $10 for output per million.
Google is showing incredible discipline here, and it connects perfectly to our discussion on production dependency.
How so?
Well, they deliberately delayed this general release to focus on stabilizing long task reasoning and token efficiency. I mean, a 2 million token context window isn't just a neat feature. It means an enterprise can feed the AI an entire year's worth of financial records in a single prompt.
That's insane.
It is. But if the model hallucinates halfway through a complex accounting task, the business fails.
Right, the stakes are too high.
Exactly. Google wants to ensure Gemini 3.5 Pro can survive messy, complex 2026 enterprise workflows without breaking the client's architecture. Plus, you have to remember, their Gemini 2.5 Pro with Deep Think is already dominating open public cloud endpoints, so that gives them the luxury of time.
But over at OpenAI, they are not waiting for anyone.
No, they are not.
The speed metrics we're seeing in this digest are just unreal. GPT 5.6 Sol is currently hitting 750 tokens per second on Cerebra's infrastructure for select enterprise customers.
It's blistering.
750 tokens a second. To put that in perspective for you listening, that is generating a full, densely written page of text faster than you can blink.
Yeah, it's wild.
And on the scientific front, OpenAI just released GeneBench Pro. It's a 129 problem computational biology benchmark. GPT 5.6 Sol scored 31.5% on it, leaving Claude Opus 4.8 in the dust at 16%.
It's a significant leap over the competition, absolutely. But, let's look a little closer at that GeneBench Pro score.
Okay, let's look at it.
A 31.5% success rate means the most advanced AI on the planet is still failing almost 70% of an expert-level computational biology test.
Oh, wow. Yeah, when you frame it that way.
Right. And this reveals a profound architectural limitation. Language models are fundamentally built for pattern matching. They predict the most statistically likely next word.
Sure.
But advanced biology requires causal reasoning. It requires understanding that if protein A folds this specific way, it triggers a cascade that alters cell behavior, B. You can't just pattern match your way through the scientific method.
Right, it's not just guessing the next word in a textbook.
Exactly. This highlights the very real gap between the technological hype coming out of these labs and the actual scientific reality of what the models can reliably do today.
Which perfectly sets up perhaps the most stunning piece of internal candor we've seen from a major lab in a long time.
Oh, from Meta.
Yes. Meta internally acknowledged this week that their AI agents are simply not deploying fast enough to justify their capital expenditure.
Which is massive.
We're talking about a mind-bending $125 to $145 billion capex commitment for 2026. Meta is laying down all this physical compute infrastructure,
Yeah.
but enterprise adoption is just crawling.
I like to think about it like the early days of the internet.
Great.
We spent billions laying massive fiber optic undersea cables across the oceans. That was actually the easy part. It just took capital.
Right.
The hard part was teaching thousands of distinct office workers in legacy businesses how to actually use email and the web to improve their margins. The infrastructure investment right now has vastly outpaced the practical application layer.
It's like we're building a million-lane, gold-paved highway, but right now, everyone is still just driving golf carts on it.
That is exactly it. And the hyperscalers are panicking about that gap.
Which is why Microsoft just launched a $2.5 billion frontier company entirely staffed with 6,004 deployed engineers. And that was just 2 days after AWS announced its own $1 billion equivalent unit. They've realized you can't just hand an enterprise a hyper-advanced, expensive API and expect their internal IT team to figure out agentic workflows.
No, they don't know how to do it.
Right. If they want enterprises to actually use this massive amount of compute, they have to literally send armies of human engineers to build the software for them.
Exactly. The human bottleneck is the main limiting factor for AI adoption right now.
So we've covered the UN, the US labs, the enterprise bottlenecks, the Chinese regulatory wipes. We need to zoom out for a second.
Yeah, the global picture.
Because this digest shows that the global board is shifting in ways that the US-centric tech bubble is largely just ignoring. The sheer volume of tokens being processed globally is staggering. Aaron Rose highlights that China is now processing 140 trillion tokens daily.
It's a massive number.
It's up from just 100 billion at the start of 2024. And Alibaba is actively consolidating all of this under a massive token hub.
That volume fundamentally changes the market dynamics. When you hit 140 trillion tokens daily, you aren't just running a software service anymore. You are operating a utility.
Right, like water or power.
Exactly. And this utility scale is allowing Chinese providers to just commoditize the model layer. Look at the open router traffic stats in the digest.
Oh yeah, Chinese AI providers now serve 45% of all traffic on that platform.
Yeah.
Xiaomi's MiMo V2 Pro is actually leading the pack at a 21.1% weekly token share. They're completely dwarfing OpenAI, which is sitting at just 7.5%.
And the mechanism behind that dominance is pure economics. Xiaomi is offering a 1 million token context window at a price that is 3 to 10 times cheaper than US frontier models.
Wow.
It's a vicious race to the bottom on price and a race to the top on scale.
And that race requires physical resources.
Absolutely.
We often talk about AI as if it exists up in the cloud. Yeah. But the cloud is just someone else's computer. It requires concrete, copper, land, and massive amounts of electricity.
Which is why Blackstone committing $30 billion to Japanese AI data centers is such a critical signal here.
Yeah, their president stated publicly that the risk of underbuilding is greater than the risk of a market bubble.
Right. And they're choosing Japan because it offers the stability, the advanced manufacturing, and the grid capacity needed to host this next generation of physical infrastructure. The financial sector has basically decided that compute is the new oil, and they are rushing to build the refineries.
It is relentless. You've got SpaceX entering the NASDAQ 100, while xAI is currently training Grok 5 on a massive 6 to 10 trillion parameter target.
Yeah, the scale is just exploding everywhere.
And Europe isn't just sitting on the sidelines either. Cohere and Aleph Alpha are locked in a $20 billion sovereign-focused merger. Europe has recognized that if they rely entirely on US or Chinese models, they lose their data sovereignty.
Exactly. They need their own foundational models to protect their domestic enterprise data from foreign extraction.
So if we synthesize all the threads from today's deep dive, the landscape of July 2026 is defined by these massive colliding contradictions.
Yeah, contradiction is the perfect word for it. At the very top, you have 169 countries in Geneva trying to write safety rules and establish international governance over a technology they frankly don't own.
Right.
And then underneath that, the models themselves are scaling to trillions of parameters, consuming hundreds of billions of dollars in physical capital, and yet they're hitting profound architectural walls in reasoning.
And caught right in the middle is you, the user, the enterprise developer, and the daily consumer, just trying to navigate sudden billing cliffs, sweeping regulatory shutdowns, and the deeply fragile reality of relying on infrastructure you don't control.
Yeah, the airplane is flying at Mach 10, the ticket prices are wildly unpredictable, and the engineers are still trying to figure out how the engine actually works.
It has a terrifying metaphor. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over. There was one tiny, unexplored nugget hidden in the quick hits of today's digest.
Oh, the S1 filing.
Yeah, that one. It mentioned that OpenAI's $830 billion to $1 trillion IPO S1 filing contains a deeply controversial proposal, a 5% government equity stake.
A proposal that Anthropic and Google are reportedly just quietly ignoring.
Right. So, think about this. We've spent this whole time talking about governments trying to regulate AI and governments forcing AI features to shut down. But what happens to the global tech landscape, to user privacy, and to free market innovation? If the United States government literally becomes a foundational equity-holding shareholder in the intelligence layer itself.
It changes everything. What happens to global oversight when the people writing the safety manual actually own a piece of the casino?
We'll let you chew on that. Thank you so much for joining us in this deep dive into the sources. Keep questioning the infrastructure you use every single day, and we'll catch you next time.